Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Nick from ForexNoobs.com with the daily analysis. Can you all hear me okay? Been having some mic issues. I think it's working now. I'll just continue while people answer. So today is Tuesday, the 4th of February 2020, and time is 4 minutes past 9 a.m. here in the UK. You're looking at Alright, awesome, everyone can hear me. Looking at an AUD USD daily chart, so let's get into the analysis. Just going to unmark all these because I marked them for a webinar, so they're not really potential setups. Yeah, nothing on USDCAD. Can't get any support resistance areas for USDCHF. If you look back, switch to the monthly chart. The last time it was down here was for a brief, well, it wasn't even down here. That was August 2015 it got to here. The last time it was this low was never. So can't get support resistance areas for USDCHF right now. It's pretty much at all-time lows. But it looks like it's climbing back up, so we'll just we'll see what it does when it climbs back up. I think I moved these support resistance areas yesterday because I did a webinar yesterday. And I messed around with my support resistance areas a little bit. And I forgot to reset them. Alright, no big deal. It's only a few of them. Yeah, but there's nothing really on AUD JPY. Nor is there on AUD New Zealand. AUD USD is interesting. It looks like it could be pulling back, but it's just in such a tricky place right now. AUD USD is at like 10-year lows. Last time it was down here was 2009. All the way back here. So right now it's at pretty much 11-year lows. And it seems to be struggling at these lows. Well, actually, technically speaking, if you want to, it hasn't broken the low that it made in October 2019. So it's technically not at 10-year lows. But what I mean is it's close to those 10-year lows. So obviously it's reacting there. Every time it gets to those 10-year lows, it reacts and it turns around like it did last time. But this time it's actually closed lower than it's closed before. These last few times, it just pushed down and then shot back up. This time it's actually closed lower. And then we got a whole other candle that yesterday that opened down here and hasn't gone back up. So it's hard to say whether this move is going to retrace. Right now it looks like it's going to retrace. It's made a new high. But it's a tough one to say. Either way, I'm not going to trade here. It's just a bit too risky. And remind me to take a quick look at the news. Interest rate left on hold today, like you say. What else is coming up today? It's just the New Zealand news today. Yeah, not much. Tomorrow, Governor Lowe speaks. Could have an impact. ECB president speaking tomorrow. Not sure what. There's not much information on what he's actually talking about, so definitely be concerned about that. But we'll discuss tomorrow's news more tomorrow. There's no point looking at it today. For today, the only thing happening in the next 24 hours is the New Zealand unemployment rate, an employment change, and RBA Governor Lowe is speaking at 1:30 a.m. So yeah, it's a tricky time to trade AUD/USD. And with the coronavirus and the bushfires and everything, it's just, yeah, the Aussie is struggling right now. The Aussie dollar. The coronavirus has an impact because the Chinese economy is, it tends to have a pretty big impact on the Aussie dollar. So the coronavirus has a kind of knock-on effect on the Aussie. And the bushfires, they can't be helping much either. Well, they do seem to be getting somewhat under control, which is good to hear. My mum lives in Sydney. They can't leave the house without a mask on. Pretty crazy. The euro is really pulling back from those big moves it did towards the end of last week. There's potential for a short on EURCAD, but honestly, I wanted to push up further. Oops. I wanted to push up further. Let's see how today's candle closes. I might be willing to trade it from here because it's kind of combined with the 200 moving average, which gives it some extra resistance. But then again, it is a cross pair, so 200 moving average isn't fantastic on cross pairs. Regardless, I'm going to keep an eye on this one, but I'm not holding out too much hope with this one. We'll just see. It might give us a setup. No, let's leave them green. Could have a bit of a range forming here, guys. I want to see price push up to here and then pull back. Let's keep an eye on EURCHF for a potential range. Yeah, so this would be the top of the range. Potentially, it's still early days. We don't know if it's going to stall here, but there's potential that it gets stuck here. And gives us a nice little range. The 12-hour, the 6-hour, the 8-hour, those kind of time frames. It's a bit too compressed on the daily, so I would definitely be looking at lower time frames. I would say the 8-hour is probably going to be the best, or the 6-hour. Let's go to. Again, I moved some of these support resistance areas around for a webinar I did yesterday, and I haven't really fixed them, so I'm just going to quickly fix these. EURCAD has hit that huge high again and it's pulled back. It did it overnight, so it was a tough one to enter as a trade for me personally because I was in bed. Is anyone short on EURCAD? I know it's not a pair that's commonly traded, but it is a pretty solid pair. Potential continuation on GBP AUD. Continuation of the bullish trend. It's set up on the 8-hour, potentially the 12-hour. I don't really like trading continuations on the 8-hour. But I might do it. We'll see how it goes, but there's definitely potential for a continuation here. So what I'm thinking is we'll go to the 8-hour just as an example, but I'm going to try trade this on a higher time frame if I can. The basic concept is something like this. Let's imagine this 8-hour candle closes as is. So I'll place entry here, a stop loss here, and a target, initial target at 2R. I'll wait for that new candle to open, break my entry, and then hopefully push up to my target. If it's moving well, I'll extend that target a little bit, so on and so forth. So yeah, there's some potential there. GBP-CHF stalling out on top of support, coinciding with the 200 moving average. Again, 200 moving average is not great on cross pairs, but it's still worth keeping an eye on. Yeah, 12-hour daily doesn't make too much difference in this case. It's pretty much the same thing. Let's imagine the daily candle closes as it looks right now, which is unlikely because we've got 12 hours left in the trading day. This candle closes at 10 p.m. But let's imagine it does. Then I'd put in an entry above the high. I'd put in a stop loss below the low, and I'd have a target around 2R. This is sort of a continuation trade, although the trend's been pretty sideways for the last few months, so it's tough to call it a proper continuation. But I'd target around about 2R, maybe even a bit less. Yeah, there's definitely potential here. GBP-JPY, very similar to GBP-CHF. There's potential for a long. I'm not as crazy about this one because last time it pushed up, it didn't really get very far before shooting down, but it shot down due to the Brexit stuff. So, oh no, it didn't. Sorry, my mistake. It shot down on Monday. It shot up due to the Brexit stuff, of course, because the pound went up across the board. So it's kind of pulled back now, but yeah, let's keep an eye on it for a potential long. So it's exactly the same as GBP-CHF. If today's candle closes as is, there's potential to place an entry at the high of the candle, a stop loss at the low, and a target around about here, but I just don't like this one as much. Simply because the last time it pushed up, it shot back down straight away. So I'm not convinced that this time it'll get through that spot. Yeah, but we'll see. GBP-SEC could give us, and I know this is a pair that's not often traded by you guys, but once again, this is a really good pair. So it's worth us keeping an eye on these kind of weird cross pairs. They look intimidating because the spread's often pretty big on them, but you have to keep in mind that the amount of pips they move is also huge. So it's all relative. If you have a 5 pip spread on a pair that moves on average 50 pips per day versus having a 100 pip spread on a pair that moves roughly 1,000 pips per day, it's all relative, isn't it? The only time it's not good is if your account size isn't big enough to cover the stop loss within your acceptable risk. Then obviously you can't trade these pairs. There's definitely potential for a long here. I want to see how this candle closes. There's a lot of GBP pairs right now that we're looking at. Depending on how GBP moves today, all of these potential setups could be completely wiped off the map. They might not even turn into setups because we're looking at a lot of GBP pairs. If GBP goes crazy today, we might be these setups might just not happen. Right now they're classed as potential setups, so we need to wait for the candle to close. So as long as the candle closes right, we might get a setup, but if it doesn't, then we won't get anything. So just keep that in mind. Kind of the same thing here on GBP USD, but this one I want it to push further down into support. It's pulled away from support right now, so this one I'm going to mark it, but we'll talk about that one more tomorrow because it's unlikely anything's going to happen with that one today. Yeah, this one's stalling out below the support area. Be interesting if it turns around here. Yeah, there's nothing to trade there right now though. USDCAD's approached a new high, well not a new high, but a high that it hasn't seen in a little while. It's already showing signs of backing away from this high. I'd prefer for it to push further up into the high for a potential short, but there is definitely potential for a short here. I want to see how today's candle closes. If it closes as indecision, so the ideal situation would be for this candle to push back up a little bit. That might give us a setup. But honestly, I'd rather have a candle sort of like this in the next day or two. Because I prefer to trade from resistance and not below resistance. But it's definitely worth keeping an eye on because this is a pretty strong resistance area. Let's see how it goes. My support resistance areas for crude got wiped out. That's It's a bit annoying. Yeah, I don't know what happened though. I did some placing of support resistance areas for crude oil because I said I'd start adding this to the analysis. But they seem to have been deleted. Okay, it's fixed now though. Nothing really tradable right now on crude. It is trending down pretty steeply though, so I'd love to get in short on this if it pulls back to my resistance area. So I'm looking for a pullback to resistance for a potential short, but this one's still a while off, so I won't mark it. Gold and silver, not much right now. Silver is at, gold is at highs that we haven't seen in quite some time. Back in 2013 was the last time it was up here. So gold is at pretty significant highs. But yeah, I don't really see a setup here on gold or silver. It's going to adjust some of these support resistance areas. Potential for a short from this resistance area here. On UKX. I want to see what happens at this resistance area if we see some indecision on the daily or perhaps some of the lower time frames. I haven't updated my support resistance areas on these. Because I haven't actually looked at them properly yet this year. Yeah, nothing much on there. Okay, so all I'm seeing is UKX right now. On these. Should also move. Yeah, I'll move this one to here. So yeah, for oops, I removed the wrong. Oh, damn it! I'll fix that later. So for UKX, potential short from this resistance area. For crude, this one's still a while away from forming, but I want to see it pull back up to this resistance area for a potential short. So I'll be looking for a short from that resistance area. So yeah, that's it for the analysis, guys. Are there any questions? I've already done the recap. I don't have time to do it again. The recording's going to be out like really quickly after this webinar's done, so you could just catch it on the recording. Where's my next resistance area at? 14427. It's at these all-time highs that it was at last week. Sorry, not last week, last year, I meant to say. I really don't know what to say about this pair. It's not in a position where I think that there can be a decent trade. I hate it when pairs are at these all-time highs or all-time lows. They become really tricky to trade because they struggle to push up any higher when they're at all-time highs. But a lot of the times they'll surprise you and they'll just break out like crazy. So yeah, I'm just not going to be trading USD NOK at the moment unless it pulls back down. Alright guys, I'm going to have to wrap this one up. So thank you guys very much for attending, and I'll see you for tomorrow's webinar, which should be at the same time of 9 a.m. Sorry I couldn't be more insightful about USD NOK. I just, whenever it's at these new highs or new lows, I'm always unsure what to do. Because it's a big risk either way. So I tend to just stay out. But yeah, I'll catch you guys for tomorrow's webinar. Thank you guys for attending, and I'll see you later.